I gave it a maybe because
it's shaped like a Panerai, vaguely.
That's as good a reason as any. It's shaped vaguely like a Panerai.
It has a sticky out crown and it's vaguely shaped like a Panerai. That's why you like it, Rick.
That's why I like it. Yay! Sorted. That's all the aesthetic that I need.
I was thinking like, how much is it going to cost? Like $47,000, maybe 87, but it's $247, and I just don't see where that money is going. Not even close. I mean, a Ferdinand Berthoud is 100,000 less than this. And it's in another league in terms of finishing and construction and everything else.
Yeah.
100,000 less.
But can I see through the lugs? Like, look at this thing. This thing is so
Dude,
rad.
I'll lay it out for you. If for 100,000, they would grill those lugs for you.
Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. Yes, we know you all missed us terribly last week, but we had a week of letting the watch world catch up with everything we're doing. It does feel like the watch world has taken a breath after Watches and Wonders and get some of their energy back. Ariel is not here. He is apparently on his way to Geneva. Now, I ask you, David, is it a coincidence that Ariel is on his way to Geneva at the same time as Christie's are having serious internet problems? Do you think they've called Ariel in? Do you think he's Mr. Fixer for this?
All I will say is that reports have been made that there were like two large capital A's lit on the skies at night over the Lake Geneva. It's the call sign of Ariel. Please go and fix it for us. So he's in his cave now, just like this,
You think,
on his way to Geneva to fix it.
Do you think Ariel would wear underpants on the outside of his costume? Do you think he's that kind of superhero?
If that would save him from having to do anything with auctions, yes. I think he would.
I mean, auctions, Ariel, there's lots of A's involved. I just feel there's an untold story going on here.
What are we missing here? Yes. There's a missing link.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Ripley, thoughts on this matter?
Well, I just think if Ariel was a superhero, he would probably wear nearly the exact same thing he regularly wears. I could picture him in a colorful sweatshirt, colorful graphic tee. The only difference would be the mask. And I could totally see this happening. This, and he can team up with Brightman to fight the evil whoever is Thornton Christie's, and yeah, we already have the first series done. There we go.
So are you Robin to Ariel's Batman? Is that what we're saying? Are you his ward?
I mean, I don't think Brightman needs to wear budgie smugglers like Robin, but if I guess I'm happy to don them for the sake of the comic. I'd be lying if I said I didn't own a few pairs.
Okay, well, let's just stop and not think about that at all for a moment. Right, let's move on. So yes, Christie's have been having some issues. Only Watch happened. That's probably the only time we're going to mention Only Watch, unless there was any. It did strike me again as somewhat suspicious that an awful lot of these Only watches went for pretty close to the maximum estimate. There was actually one or two that went under the estimate, which was a bit surprising. But there was quite a lot of, sold for the estimate. Was there anything that took you by surprise? Did you follow it at all?
A little bit. I think it's kind of one of those things that's sort of I normally don't really care, and this one I was more curious than most because of how the whole delay happened. And then, I mean, so like if this happened when it was supposed to happen, stuff like that Tag Monaco would have been very special. But then they released the commercially available one at Watches and Wonders, and I think the Monaco actually sold for less than the full-on sticker price of the commercially available one. So that's kind of unusual. But I was more interested to see what some of these watches would realize, given how much the hype had died down, and then how much how much of this was also now available in the form of some other limited edition in the catalog. So I thought it was sort of interesting. Good results for Recep. Patek, obviously, any piece unique Patek is going to sell for a bundle. But yeah, I did find it interesting that there weren't too many surprise high ones. Everything really sold for like right where we said it was, and an optimistic one at that.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
the
almost
TAG
as if.
Heuer,
Yeah, I was gonna say it's almost as if some brand bought it themselves just to save face and is just gonna throw it back into the foundry when they're done.
I just imagine them throwing the watch back into the foundry. Yes, the TAG Heuer Eugene Levy, as we've come to know it for all of those that tuned in a few weeks ago for those comments. But yes, Christie's has been struck by a bit of internet woes. I'm sure some people think that it couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of folk. But what is... it just seems to have created a lot of consternation. There's this big Michael Schumacher auction. It's all been postponed. They're using temporary websites. I guess, am I surprised that it's taken this long for an auction house to be hacked? You'd think it'd actually be quite a bit of low-hanging fruit for these monsters that hack such things. But it appears to really have upset the apple cart. Lots of folk complaining that they can't spend over-the-top amounts of money on buying watches for no particularly good reason. Oh, I missed out on buying that because I couldn't get logged online. I'm not sure who I have more sympathy for, the auction houses or those wanting to spend 25% above hammer on the particular watch that they like. I imagine there's a certain gentleman who lives somewhere in the East who's maybe on this show once or twice, who's maybe just sitting there going, yep, that's just fine. Any comments on the world of auctions? We haven't got our most famous auction commenter, as he's obviously out there fixing the problem.
I don't think it's too much of a surprise. The surprising bit is exactly what you said. It was that it took them so long. I wouldn't be surprised that there would be entities who would be interested in exposing some of the people, buying stuff using money that they shouldn't have. Or maybe it's not about exposure, just leverage. I'm pretty sure that you can have some interesting conversations with the records made from Christie's, and who knows how many years or decades, we don't know. Christie's has not made any comments on this as far as we know. But who knows, what the records are that they hacked into and obtained through those means. So it's very interesting. I mean, I would love to know what these auction houses know sometimes. My favorite auction story of all time, as far as watch auctions go, is linked to the Patek Philippe Super Complication, I think it was, that was sold for $11,002,500 back in 1999. And of course, the buyer remained anonymous. And of course, everyone was thinking about who it was, and this is huge for Patek. This was at the time when people would link auction results to the hotness of a brand and the desirability of a brand. And I don't want to lie, I think 15 years went by, and there was this story on Bloomberg saying that Sotheby's, I think it was Sotheby's, it was actually suing one of the many Altani princes. And so they took him to court over an $80 million debt. So there was this person shopping at Sotheby's to the extent of $80 million and never paying any of it. So as far as he was concerned, the watch could have been 11,250,000 or 21 million or 101 million because he never had any intention of paying it. So on that basis, there's no value actually, because whatever something is worth is how much somebody is willing to pay for it. But this person was willing to pay any amount because he never had the actual intention to pay. And so they sued him, and he gave the watch back, and then it was sold in 14, 15 for 24 million. So this is just to say that some of the numbers that you are hearing and some of the people and all these stories, it's sometimes it's smoke and mirrors, big time.
Yeah. You've got to suspect that behind the vast security of storing these watches in safes and all the rest of it, you just know that there's a single spreadsheet that's got all the information for the last 20 years of all these secret buyers, and it's just sitting in some file on some unprotected computer.
It's on an insecure pen drive, basically,
exactly.
And on Google Docs at this point.
It's on Google Docs, and somebody just logged on, and it's got like a proper title here, everything it's the file. It's like everything we ever sold and who we sold it to.
Bad people.
XLS.
All the expensive stuff bad people bought with laundered money. XL whatever, and it's sharing setting is like anyone with the link can view. That's what I want.
So you do wonder as to just It strikes me that these auction houses might just be the kind of organizations that there's massive security to get through the front door. But once you're through the front door,
you're not allowed into the building, but you can steal whatever that you want off their server.
Anyway, so we'll see if that hits the dark web or possibly even the normal web.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't honestly, we think about obviously the financial transaction end that's probably through a third party processor or something like that. But you think about the actual cybersecurity, and this is the watch industry. This is like, we're great at making little physical objects, and everything's so physical where it's like, we're going to prevent the person from stealing the physical thing, and we're good. The cybersecurity. Okay, so if the app for Watches and Wonders is any indicator for the cybersecurity levels for like this type of, it seems like low hanging fruit. I am, like David said, I'm surprised it didn't take longer, but like, I can see this being for years. We've been so fixated on the physical object that it's Google Docs, random server in the building, like nothing. There's probably nothing super high tech from just like a record standpoint, merchant processing aside. But like,
yes,
it probably didn't take them very long.
No, I mean, how many times have we been able to go to, say, Rolex or Tudor websites and just guess what the URL would be for their next set of watches? Just type in, go to the Google homepage and /watches and wonders and see if it just takes you, or look at the index page for the website. Oh, look at that, or a part number or the next number in a sequence. And lo and behold, there's the web page sitting there just waiting to be made public. So you got to figure that an industry that only got into the internet, what it feels like yesterday, probably hasn't quite got switched on to internet security. But I'm sure Ariel is winging its way to Geneva to fix it all. I think he's going over to see Victorinox. So maybe it's one of those knives like maybe that's what he's going for. He's going to get his utility belt sorted. His costume. He's just got to get the knife that's got the right, like all the stuff. He's going to be like Chrono, but with all the knives and gadgets and stuff. Lots of G-shocks maybe.
He's just waiting to get the pocket knife with the USB drive that's going to fix all of this for them.
Let me plug this into your server, Mr. Christie.
But he is going to see the factory where the pocket knives are made. So at this point in time, anything is possible.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's leave them in their no doubt considerable pain. And no disrespect, I'm sure it's very stressful for all the good people that are working there, and also incredibly stressful for all the really bad people that are involved somewhere along the supply chain. So, best wishes to those that are on the good side, who are, that Ariel's no doubt on his way to rescue, and look out those that are maybe about to get caught out. Anyway, let's talk about something else. Ripley, you got to visit Franck Muller watch manufacturing facilities. I think a few folk, while Watches and Wonders were on, got the chance to do this, and everyone seems to have been really rather fascinated by the whole experience. So describe, obviously you can go and look at the article and see some of the pictures of the facility, but describe arrival at Franck Muller's watchmaking facilities, because the pictures I've seen, it doesn't exactly scream Franck Muller to you.
No, it doesn't. So this is my second time at Franck Muller's greater estate, but this is my first time getting the chance to tour the factory. It was an impromptu thing that came up because someone involved with the family, the owner, was there and they were going to go check it out. So, and we were just basically arriving for our appointment with them at the right time. So Sean happily took the meeting after I won rock, paper, scissors with back in Geneva, and I stayed at Watchland to tour the factory. It's so different. You look at the watches and it's like super blingy. There's kind of modern. There's like the crazy hours. It's like there's this fun, irreverent sort of quality to them. But Watchland's very different. The whole estate of Franck Muller is giant. Watchland is basically just one part of it, and it's where the watches are made. But it doesn't look like a watch manufacturing facility whatsoever. It looks honestly like a giant, glorious, like mansion style estate. And that's because it started with when the family purchased a singular mansion from 1905 and converted it. And then over the years, they've expanded by adding 4 other buildings and then some around it to make this whole giant complex. But because of the rules and regulations of the municipality where they are in the canton there, the buildings have to fit into the design language of the general surrounding area. And so you don't have any giant buildings of like glass and metal. Like you get everything basically looks like it could be the sibling of the original building. But within them, it's a massive labyrinth that spans everything from giant industrial cutting machines to watchmaker benches. Some of the rooms where the watchmakers sit are very ornate with wood finished walls, but basically everything other than like the case stamping and dial manufacturing and a couple other things which happen at their other Jura-based facilities takes place in this greater campus. And it's truly unique, and it is open to the public. So those who find themselves in Geneva can schedule an appointment with the brand to tour the manufacturing facilities for themselves, and I highly recommend
it. David, have you been to this facility?
Yes, I've been a couple of times.
And I'm looking at it going, right, well, clearly Franck Muller appeared to be doing quite well if this is their facility. And then I'm like thinking, well, when am I coming across people who are buying Franck Muller watches? So join the dots for me. Where are Franck Muller being successful? Obviously, they were a big hit back in the crazy early days of, watch geekery, for want of a better expression. But they seem to have really disappeared. It's not like we're covering them lots. But clearly they're still selling a lot of watches to be able to run a facility like this. So what are they selling and who's buying it?
They're big in Asian markets for one, but they also don't spend a lot on advertising. So I feel like their presence is bigger than we really realize being tuned into the media, simply because they're not constantly sending out press releases and like sending samples and notifying us of new releases and just being a constant voice in our ear or paying for sponsored content. They're just kind of over there doing their thing, and they have their retailers, and they are really big in certain markets. But I feel like our perception of how large they are versus their actual sales are very, very different, simply because they're just not in the forefront of enthusiasts, despite being one of those kind of de facto statement watch brands, if you will.
I mean, this Curvex CX Master Jumper, that's quite an impressive looking watch. Are Franck Muller making a return? Like, is part of this process of inviting the media just about them stepping up their game, David?
I'm really not sure. I don't know where they stand at this point. As you said, we haven't had that much of a connection with them. I couldn't tell you when was the last time I handled a Franck Muller, let alone I don't think I've ever received one for review. I've handled them at events. I wrote a couple of hands-ons, including the Eternitas Mega 4, which is the most complicated wristwatch for several years, maybe more. It's a hilarious hands-on that I recommend that anyone, everyone checks out on aBlogtoWatch. It was in 2018. I was just looking at the articles we wrote about Franck Muller. So yeah, I'm happy that they are still around. They have some very cool concepts like the Crazy Hours. They had this gold watch that had an alligator skin pattern on the case and the dial. It was so ridiculously obnoxious. It was fantastic. So it's fun. It's entertaining. They're still true to themselves in terms of design and execution. So I respect that. But where they are going and who's buying them, I'm honestly not sure. I mean, I could make some guesses, but Mike, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, here we are. Here's your article for those that are looking at this in the video. Yeah, that is a pretty complicated looking watch.
Yes,
Franck
isn't it
Muller.
amazing? And I had the shirt to match.
Borrowed from Ariel for a day.
Yeah, I was so thrilled when they just pulled this. Actually, it was just in the room, and I seem to remember what happened was that it was just casually in the room, and I was like, can we take some picture? I mean, it's so rare for something like this to be just around. You know, it's well over 1,000 parts in that watch. I think 12 or 1,300 parts, maybe even more, maybe 1,500. A ridiculous amount of functions and indications and pushers and whatever else. This is a nightmare to make and also a nightmare to operate. So, but look okay on my narrow wrist. So it was a lot of fun. This watch. Wow, look at that.
Cool. No, that's quite something. Go and check out the article from 2018, April the 22nd. Go and have a look at that. That's quite impressive. Ripley, did you leave the event going, you know what? Next time there's a few tens of thousands of dollars burning a hole in my pocket, maybe I'll actually look at a Franck Muller.
I've always liked the brand. Maybe it's because I'm half Japanese, but like I've always liked Franck Muller because they're like the original Chrono watch statement case piece. You know, like before there was Richard Mille, there was Franck Muller. And like if you look in the early 2000s, there was a bunch of rappers rocking crazy Franck Muller pieces. And now we've gone the super high tech route with Richard Mille. But I've always liked Franck Muller because it was one of the first brands to just totally lead into that ridiculous, like, we're going to do the irreverent, loud style, but on a really high level. And with good complications. And then if you look into their history, there's some pretty interesting pieces that have been peppered through and related to the brand. I believe Jay-Z owns this like Date Just that has like a Franck Muller perpetual calendar inside of it.
Of course he does.
Yeah, like it's a modified Date Just, like super.
No,
like
that's cool.
Yeah, like some really weird deep cut stuff. So like the brand, it's not like they just make crazy loud pieces. Stuff like the Crazy Hours or some of their higher end complications are really wild. So like, if I just, stumbled upon tens of thousands of dollars I needed to burn on a wristwatch, and I wanted something of that ilk, I'd be very tempted by Franck Muller just because I feel like it's a little bit of, it gives you a lot of that similar, tonneau shaped case, loud modern styling, interesting movement, but I feel like it's a less obvious choice these days than Richard Mille and a bit of a deeper cut as far as why you chose it or what it offers or the history of the brand, etc.
Well, maybe if you can come across a certain spreadsheet, which I believe might be floating around the internet, you might be able to furnish yourself a few tens of thousands of dollars on this. So, final thoughts, David, on Franck Muller?
I wish, we'll see more of them. I hope that they will keep doing what they're doing, which is being brash and bold and fun and all the rest of it. So, yeah, the more the better.
And they weren't at Watches and Wonders, and they weren't floating around Geneva at all. It was just who you happened to bump into at the time. Do they make an effort to do any of these sort of things? Do they go to Geneva Watch Days? They
do. They have their own thing. It's like WPHH, and it's held at their on their grounds, not at Watchland, but like adjacent to it at their like exhibition of facility place. And that's what we showed up there to do that day. But when this opportunity arose, we pivoted. And so we have a manufacturer visit instead. But they do their own show where they used to exhibit with Custos there as well. And it was so many watches, like way too many watches. So now Custos has their own place in downtown Geneva where they're exhibiting. And then Franck Muller has their own technical show where they've got like lunch being served downstairs, and it's just Franck Muller watches. And there's a ton of them, like dozens, like the whole catalog all on display. So they do have their own thing, but they don't participate with anyone else other than themselves now. And it's at their own place.
Cool, good stuff. Well, let's move on. And we haven't played Guess the Price of the Seiko for a while. And we're kind of not going to, for too long, and we're kind of not going to play it this time either. But we kind of are, because we're going to play Guess the Price of the Credor 50th Anniversary Eichi 2 Limited Edition. Now, I'm sorry, Credor, I just don't get it. I don't see the attraction. It looks like a mall watch, as you guys would say. I just don't get it at all.
But Rick, it's the most beautifully executed mall watch.
Well,
Yeah,
true.
peak mall
Yes.
watch.
Yeah, like
Peak mall.
absolute apex.
Have you seen one in person though?
Yes,
they are very
yes.
hard to come by. Okay.
I've handled a couple of them, and I still don't get it. So maybe I'm just like, I mean, they're very nice, but they just don't do anything for me. Like,
You know, sometimes
just-
there's this sort of art and items as well, collectibles, where they're not that good, but people can pretend that they get it, even though there's
Yes.
nothing to get. I'm not saying Credor is like that, but it's sometimes it's sort of you will understand it someday, but
Someday,
they have
yes.
already arrived. You know, how condescending is that?
It's an Emperor's New Clothes type watch. Yes, I
Yes.
agree. Is everybody thinks
way.
it's amazing, and nobody's telling the truth that actually it's just all right.
For
It's
the
just-
for the record, and
Uh-huh.
and this is important, I'm not doubting the effort that they put into it. I'm
Uh-huh.
absolutely sure that there's a lot of people working, or at least a handful of people working very hard. A lot of attention, a lot of time goes into it. Tremendous amounts of effort has been dedicated just to the design. They worked with Philip before on the development and learned how to finish it properly and all the rest. So there's no question in my mind about that. But the joy and whatever else that you get out of it as a product, you know, and again, putting that against the price, which we will figure out sometime soon, it's not that strong, as you say.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of summarizing it. It gives me no joy for all the effort that's clearly been put into it.
Great.
It's a joyless watch.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few in person. They are excellently executed, but like, I guess at the crux of it, that, you know, other than being beautiful and simple, it feels somewhat generic no matter how you cut it, where you can get a lot of different things that scratch a similar itch. Now, it is a very lovely creation. All of them are. And like David said, a tremendous amount of effort and care goes into it. But I think honestly, you at the highest level that exists within the brand, you kind of want some little oomph or something that sets it apart and makes it unique. And while there's nothing objectionable whatsoever about it, there's also nothing really that separates it other than just being expertly well done. So I that's kind of where I'm at, where I think they're wonderful, but like that isn't personally where I'd ever put my money.
Is the problem that these guys don't have a view out of their window of either a mountain or a bunch of trees or a lake? Is the problem that they're keeping these guys in the dark? There's no external inspiration. It's just
That could be
good. It's just expertly done, but no inspiration.
Just give them a window. Give them a window and watch this brand come alive.
Right. Well, let's have a guess at the price. I've not even looked at what the price of this is because
put it back on the screen, Rick.
Put it back on the
Just so
screen.
can
Here
see.
we go.
Yeah, please.
So here we have for those that are viewing us on the video, the Credor Eichi 2 limited edition 50th anniversary. It is on the basis that I hope the price is at the bottom, so we'll scroll down for some facts.
Let's just say it now, before you reveal it, because I'm afraid that there might be a price in between somewhere.
So it's 39 mil. So obviously starts off by being too small. It's 10 mil thick.
Okay, so it's not too thin.
It's not too thin. It's got a very lovely movement on it. A 7R14A movement, whatever that means. 41 of your gorgeous jewels.
So this is a spring drive, I think.
It does have on the back. The problem is on the back of it, it's like Seiko Time Corp.
Yes.
So it's like the most, harking back, trying to be gorgeous. And then it has something that sounds like it's come out of RoboCop written on the back of it, identifying. Exactly. It's just a bit weird. It's a bit incongruent. So yes, I don't know what is it a spring drive, David?
Yes, it is a spring drive, yes.
It's a spring drive, so there we go. It's got a lovely blue dial. I guess it is the moon.
Porcelain dial, I think.
Is it porcelain?
I know they do that. I know they do that on the white ones.
Studio. Yeah, the white one was porcelain. As far as I
I
recall.
think this is lacquer. They don't do blue blue porcelain.
So we're it's just a lacquer dial. Okay,
It's gonna be a Maquille or something like that. Maquille
some hand applied
of course.
applied with the eyelashes of the artisans.
This is apparently a porcelain blue dial.
Oh,
Okay,
good call, Ripley.
okay, yeah.
All right.
So there we go. This feels like the dial is like, what's the opposite of a full moon? Like
New moon?
The crescent.
This is like no
a crescent moon.
Well, it's like no moon at night. It's like, polar bear and snowstorm type thing.
It kind of reminds me
We're
of
being
ink.
so ignorant about this watch. It's crazy.
Well, let's see
This is bad.
so have a guess of the price, right? Ripley, how much are you paying for this inspired watch?
Oh, am I paying or am I guessing that they're charging?
I'm guessing.
I think these are miles apart. Rick. Miles
it could be
apart.
anything between. I'm sitting here thinking this could be like 20 grand. It could be $500,000.
I'm not gonna mention what I would pay for it. I my means are there. I'm Breitling guy. This is
Breitling,
a different. It's a different thing.
Spreadsheet is yet to arrive in your possession.
I'm gonna say
if only this was 47, right, Ripley? And then you'd be all over it like a true Breitling guy.
Yes. And could we
The
just
Eichi 47?
Yeah, could we put baguette diamonds in the porcelain? That might be a little bit more bracelet. 53,000 USD.
53. That sounds feasible.
Yeah,
David,
you can just shoot the moon.
higher or lower.
That's extremely close to what I was going to suggest. I will go with 56.
56.
I was torn between 47 and 56, but I think it starts at a 5.
I mean, I have no clue. I genuinely, for some of these watches, think this could be like 100 grand. It's not going to be less than 50, I don't think. I'll go 75, just to be honest.
Okay.
Here we go. Let's scroll down. How quickly, drum roll. How quickly can we come across the price? How long is this article?
48,000 euros.
48,000 euros. So what does that
So that's
do?
basically 50 something.
Yeah. It's just about parity. Just
thank God.
Does
GBLT 996, GBLT 996
it's
price.
only 30 examples. Does the rarity and price make you love it more?
It's 45,000 in US because there's, the taxes are not quite so high. So even though the exchange rate would make it go higher than the euro price, the lower taxes, it's 45,000. Huh.
Okay. 30 examples for I'm suddenly slightly more interested, if truth be told. I mean, not that much more interested, but I'm like, okay.
It's crazy amounts of money.
I feel like
Ripley is frozen. Ripley is just like stunned.
Well,
into silence. He's having Breitling man regrets and he's wishing he was Aichi man.
I'm always Eichi man. I just love how the pricing is just so arbitrary. But no, this doesn't seem like a terrible price point if you're considering like this as an equivalent or an alternative to something like a Calatrava. Like this seems we're in the same space.
Doable. Well, talking about pricing formulas, we have yet to on this show weigh into this particular watch with a particular pricing formula, shall we say, and that is the TAG Heuer Formula 1 Kith watch.
Hey.
Yeah.
6 times the Moose watch. It's crazy. People flipped out. I remember we were at this meeting with TAG Heuer, and I love the brand. I love a lot of what they do, but when they pulled this out, I was like, this is the coolest thing in quite some time. Charming, likable, technically a toy watch. And literally also a toy watch. In some glorified plastic or whatever on a rubber strap. Just lovely. I mean, this is right. The timing is perfect with this Kith Heuer Formula 1. Right on the riding the waves of Moose watch and all the rest. And then they say, oh, it's $1,500, and I was like, oh my God. And it's also limited between 250 and 1350 pieces, depending on the reference, which is way too limited. That was my comment that we made. And for the record, when we saw these at Watches and Wonders, we of course, it had not yet been made public, so we wouldn't know, we couldn't tell, what the public reaction was going to be. But having done this for so long, we could tell that it's priced quite high, and the limitations are very high as well, and that's not really a good combination. Especially, I've done the math, and I found some old catalogs for the Formula One, TAG Heuer Formula One from the 80s, and they were $140, something like that, and adjusted for inflation, they are like $480. So these are 3 times more than what they should be, quote unquote, should be, compared to that.
And there's also like a presentation box where you can buy them all, and
for $18,000.
And as I understand it, that's more expensive than if you bought all of them individually. Is it not supposed to work the other way around?
Well, it comes with the box, Rich. It comes with the box.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a box.
Well,
great. Clumsy box.
I think a lot of this can be explained by the collaborating partner.
No. Ripley. None of this can be explained. Let's just get
yes,
that.
Thank you, Rick.
It can be posited, but not explained.
Yes.
You may now pause it, Ripley.
So I'm not too familiar with Kith, but I most frequently hear about the brand.
Anybody?
I guess. Clearly, but I most frequently hear about the brand in relation to like sneakers and like hypebeast stuff, and so it's important for this is probably their highest like AOV collaboration they've done when you're looking at a bunch of like New Balance sneaker collabs or something like that, and so it's important for it to be a success, and it's important for it to sell out. Hence the tiny production numbers. This isn't something you'd want to see sitting. That would then set a paradigm for like how desirable a Kith branded watch would be, So I think a lot of this has to do with this, but the price point is absolutely nuts. Like I would have loved to see this come in at like maybe twice a moon swatch, and that would be like a really fun thing, but it's so expensive.
Well, what you just described there, Ripley, is impossible to sympathize with as a customer. Oh, you want to sell all of them? Oh, wow. Okay, well, now I get it. Nobody ever says that. It's impossible to comprehend that sort of approach. And they said it like 5 times, like, oh, what we do this because it's a collaboration. And who cares? As a customer, it has absolutely zero added value.
I'm not trying to justify it. I don't think there's much justification. I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure that's like the thought process behind it. And I'm sure we will see these once they sell out and make a big enough splash, make a return in a more affordable, commercially available variant. But I still think the ask is too ambitious. I wish they kind of stratified it. So like the largely composite ones were like $500 or something. And then maybe the most premium limited edition, whatever, Kith branded thing could top out at $1,500. But I think it would be a great entrance way into TAG. But instead, like $1,500 can get you something from other brands. So, or even get you
it can get you a real watch.
Yeah, it can get you a real tag. Just look around on the pre-owned market.
Yeah. As if Max Verstappen wasn't embarrassed enough having to wear the TAG Heuer around the paddock with all the Mosers and Richard Mille and stuff. He now has to wear a plastic watch.
To TAG Heuer's really, they produce this image of Max sitting in a car wearing like 5 of these over his racing overall, and he's sitting in a car, and it's such a powerful, fantastic picture. I really like that. And TAG really knows how to like present these and market these, and they've done that so well. But only 1 out of these 10 pieces should have been a Kith Heuer, and then the rest of the 10 honestly should have been way lower price at like $500 adjusted for inflation, a very low entry point, still twice as expensive as a Moose watch. So they could be like, well, Omega is worth $250 on a dial, but TAG Heuer is worth $500. Okay, so that still would have been a powerful message. But this exclusionary presentation and whatever, it goes so very strongly against what the Formula One was and should be about. It just boggles my mind, really.
So David brings up an interesting point. There's someone who appears to be Max Verstappen sitting in the cockpit of the car wearing all the TAG Heuers because he's wearing Max's helmet. Now,
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if this is Red Bull Racing reserve driver Liam Lawson filling in for duty where it counts, and Max is somewhere doing something racing related,
That's
like
fine.
sitting in a sim. But I
do you think
just
it would
wonder, like,
even be-
he's making like $100 million a year. Do you think they're really like, hey, stop doing what you were doing to win races and stuff? Like, we need you over here to like posture for this thing that'll probably take 3 hours.
There's no way it's even the reserve driver. No way it's even the reserve driver.
Well, they have
someone
to fit.
from the canteen. Someone from the canteen.
Mechanics sit in the car a lot of the times, but maybe from the canteen too. Yes.
Someone from the canteen who it's like I don't know what the equivalent is in other countries, but what used to be called YTS, which was like the youth training scheme, like apprentice, but like a layer below that. So this is literally guy or girl's first day on the job. Look, going to go and sit in this car, just put these blooming plastic watches on, and then stick your arm out. I don't think it's any more advanced. I don't know if there's anyone actually seen photos of Max Verstappen's face with these on them or not. Is the future of this watch that this is Kith, and that shortly we'll see TAG Heuer Formula One, and then that will be $600?
No, it won't. It'll still be probably like $1,000 or $1,200. But what I'm most curious to see is whether it's watch people who buy these Kith Formula Ones, or if I like literally see it on like the wrists of the guys standing outside the sneaker store at Fairfax when I'm driving by. Like, I wonder like what market is it going to be, watch enthusiasts or like the Kith hype beast type of crowd?
We know full well you're not driving by. We know full well you're also in the queue for more sneakers. We've seen the Instagram videos. We know what's going on in your household.
I've never lined. No, that's not true. One time I did have to line up, but it was. But no, I'm usually I take what I can get,
VIP
and I take what I can get, and if the plug or the connects don't have it, I'm not. I'm okay to take the L on it.
Good stuff. Right. Well, some other watches. David, you reviewed the Chronomaster Sport, which, I mean, I really like. Do I prefer it over the Daytona, which I think is kind of like what's where you pitch the article, basically? Do I prefer it if you remove all branding? This is just a better watch. But what did you conclude?
Which one is the better watch?
The Zenith. The Zenith is the better watch. The one you don't own.
Maybe.
The Zenith is the better watch. Tell me why. Tell me why I'm wrong. Fight me.
I mean, I just wrote 3,000 words on the matter. Maybe
you just
more.
Come to me, I would have saved you the effort.
It's a great watch. It really is. And in some ways, it's much more detailed. It's better value. Look at that movement, the case by shot. It's the second picture in the article for a reason. That's quite something to look at, and this is not something you get out of the Daytona. So it's absolutely true, and I'm happy that there's stiff competition that is pushing Rolex a little bit, and it adds up, and people can shrug that off and say that Rolex is not paying attention or they don't have to, but they actually do, and it's reflected in some of the things that they do, like the open case bag, the new 4131 movement that's in the new Daytonas that is prettier than this one, the 4130 that's in the older models. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the Zenith that I like in terms of detailing and stuff, but in some other aspects to wear in the long run and to appreciate the overall feel and quality of execution, the Daytona is just, I think, a nicer object to wear, especially again in the long run.
But and is that because of the feeling it engenders in the wearer? Because you're like, it's a Daytona, it's got a history, it's got a current cultural value that the Zenith simply doesn't have. So
I don't think the Zenith is lacking that.
Is the wearer projecting the value more than the watch is providing the value in that?
What radiates from the Daytona when you put it on, especially when you wear it for extended periods, is that tremendous amount of work has gone into the way the watch feels on the wrist. And there's, it comes down to weight, comes down to balance, comes down to, how it sits, how it feels. It's really difficult to describe in a way, but very few other watches are as rounded in terms of comfort and durability and just overall execution as that. And you can see that other watches like this Zenith, for example, is distracted in some other ways, and it delivers on those matters excellently. Of course, you get a nicer finished bracelet, a more elaborate case, a crazy movement. But overall, in the long run, I wouldn't want to wear it because it's just not as comfortable. It's not as slim. It just doesn't feel the same way. But to answer your question, to some, it might be satisfying to know that, they have the hot thing or whatever else. But I don't think that that's necessarily the case that makes, the Daytona special to actually wear. Because most of the people, I think, who buy it for the status will just put it in a drawer and wear it on special occasions and not beat it up over daily wear. So I think that's also a difference.
There is no doubt that the Daytona is a marvelously comfortable watch to wear. And I think it's probably not spoken about enough that it is, for all its hype and all the rest of it, it's actually a really, really comfortable watch to actually use on a daily basis. Ripley, your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, this is one of those strange instances where your brain, if you try to rationalize it, will, mine at least does, arrive at the conclusion that the Zenith is the more compelling watch. For every reason David already mentioned. Plus, you look at the intertwined history between the Rolex Daytona and the Zenith El Primero, and it was literally the El Primero movement from Zenith that pulled the Daytona from the clutches of oblivion in 1988 and gave it a self-winding caliber for the first time. Like that is so woefully late to the party when it comes to automatic chronographs. Like the end of the 80s, quartz had been around, you know what I mean? So the fact that the Daytona hadn't, until it got the Zenith-based caliber, reached that point, it really is the reason the Daytona is the watch it is today. If it hadn't had the El Primero, it might have just been discontinued, dropped off, and written off as that thing that wasn't the Speedmaster in the era. So, the Daytona owes part of its success to Zenith and the El Primero. You get a display case back. It's less money. You get a date complication, even though it's at 4:30. I'm not going to unpack that right now, but
thank you.
It's the more compelling option, a higher rate beat movement for every single reason. And then if you put both in front of me and said, neither one is going to cost you any money and you can't sell it, so forget about resale value or anything, which one do you want to wear and keep for the rest of your life? I'd still pick the Daytona, and not because it's a Rolex or anything like that. It's just, I like the way it feels a bit better on my wrist. I personally don't like the 4:30 date window. I think there's just certain things with the Rolex where an obsessive amount of detail was poured into something seemingly insignificant. But when you multiply that by 100,000 different things, what you're left with is a very, very well executed watch. And like David mentioned, there's just certain areas that the Zenith just doesn't have that extra mile. And even though on paper it is the more compelling offering at less money to boot, I still just take the Daytona because it feels great on the wrist, and there's so much that it does right down to everything from the geometry of the case to just how it sits on your wrist.
Yes.
Yeah, David.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's very difficult. I spent a long time writing this article and formulating it, because if you like the Daytona, you're immediately labeled as a fanboy, and it's so difficult to say how great a watch it is without coming across someone whose vision is blurred by the status or something like that. And it's very, very difficult to convey what it's like when there's a product that is relatively simple, because if you look at the Daytona, it's not a terribly complicated watch. It's basically a chronograph with a 12-hour and a 30-minute counter, and then that's it. It's like screw down pushers, and that's about as complicated as it gets. And yet, because there are not too many distractions in a way, everything could be rounded off and just as Ripley said, be, there's an extra mile overall, and it comes from the sound the watch makes or the sound the watch doesn't make. Like for me, like the sound of a rotor, I hate that. I really don't like the whirring sound of a self-winding rotor. And this one, not even with an aftermarket case back, you cannot hear anything ever out of the Daytona. And the sound of the bracelet of the Zenith, for example, it sounds like a much cheaper watch, even though it's a $10,000 watch. So it's not like you can make a case for it like, oh, it's only 10 grand. No, for 10 grand, for as much as 10 grand, it should feel, higher quality overall, even though, again, as far as details are concerned, in some ways, as I elaborate on the article, the Zenith is more elaborately detailed than the Daytona. So it's interesting, but this is what makes something fun for a year or for two, and what makes something a freaking forever watch that you feel okay to wear, for decades without, it aging on you.
So in conclusion, where are we sitting in 5 years? Obviously, you can get Zenith Chronomasters. You can actually buy them online at less than retail if you shop around. And Zenith are continuing to expand the range, whereas Rolex, you can't get them, and there's only a couple of varieties really that you can ever get hold of within the Daytona range. Is there any point in Zenith trying further to eat into a Daytona market, or is actually what we're really talking about in the grand scheme of things is actually two entirely different propositions going forward? They may look very similar, they may do similar things, there may be some historic links between the watches, but actually this is two watches that for the vast majority of the public are serving two entirely different markets. Or is there going to be a coming together of these? Zenith, supported by LVMH Group, have probably the closest thing to all the money in the world to compete with Rolex if they really wanted to. But do they really want to? Is that what they're into?
I think they just wanted a slice of the cake, which is totally understandable. I bring up some other examples from price spectrum that you can think of, where it's obvious. I mean, the recipe works. People want it. If you see people signing up for like 8 or 10 year waiting lists and are desperate to get something, you'd be out of your mind not to try and give them what they want. And on that basis, I think this works. It just needs a bit of further refinement, as you say. I just searched for it on Round 24, and you can pick up one of these pandas at like $7,300 in the US. So and that's a big difference compared to whatever the cheapest Panda is going for. And at $7,000, this is a great watch with a 1/10 of a second chronograph and an amazing movement and whatever else. At $7,000, it's a very, very strong value proposition.
And Zenith's output is a tiny fraction. I mean, they're a very big famous brand, but they actually don't make that many watches per year. So I wouldn't be surprised if on a numerical basis, there's actually fewer of these Zenith Chronomasters out there in the wild than there are like Panda Daytonas. So, and I think the current price of like a Panda Daytona is like $35,000. So when you think that's like 5x on the open market, 5x the price of what you can grab a Zenith for, that's a massive delta. That is a huge delta as far as price. So, when it comes down to spending my own money, there's a clear winner there. But, I think like David said, I don't think they're trying to take on Rolex. I think they're just trying to get a slice of the pie because they would have to multiple times ramp up the number of watches they produce to even get on that. And at the end of the day, I think the industry is big enough for these two different watches or both. I'm sure some collectors buy both and they tell this interesting story of these two models that are two of the most famous chronographs in existence outside the Speedmaster.
Good stuff. Well, go check out the article. Lots of comments on that, and tell David why he's wrong. Okay, let's.
Please do,
because he loves it so much. Let's move on and do some very quick hit miss. Maybe if you are tuned into the podcast, you may or may not get to hear all of Hitmas maybe of the new Tudor watch for all you keen on cycling, the Artime ART015N, something from Hublot, and maybe if there's time, something from Formex. That may all be on the podcast, or it may be split between the podcast and the YouTube channel. So if you still want to find out more, go and check out the YouTube channel, aBlogtoWatch Weekly Live. So here we go. First up, we were just speaking about value proposition chronographs, Tudor Pelagos, FXD Chrono. It feels to me like it's all gone quite silent across the FXD Chrono side of things, Ripley, but you got to review this. What do you make of it?
I did not get a chance to see it. I just read up the news story. It looks like an interesting news. I think it's interesting how they've kept the FXD Chrono. This is the second execution. Both have been rather niche racing sports. One we get boat racing. This is bike racing. But it's an interesting watch. I don't know how practical it is actually to time the cycling aspect of it, but I like that Tudor's making quirky sports watches because that is an inherent part of the brand's DNA. And, it's not something that they do all that often. They've been doing a lot of vintage inspired stuff. So a cycling watch seems like a fairly modern thing for Tudor to do and seems on brand for the company as a whole.
What's the case material?
It's carbon composite with titanium bits.
Ooh.
So it's basically
Titanium
like
bits.
the FXD Alinghi one, but it uses a fixed bezel and instead of a rotating one. But yeah, carbon composite with titanium case back and pushers and ground.
David, are you printing something out in the middle of the podcast?
I am not. It's Ripley's shuffling something. I'm dead silent. I don't know what it is. But I do have to bring these out because I never have them on hand.
I printed these out. That's what I was. Yeah.
Can I confess that I've lost my miss? So everything's either going to be a hit or a maybe. I don't know if I've done my miss, but that's quite good anyway.
Oh, that's funny.
Let's give this a vote. Is this a hit, a miss, or a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Maybe. A hit from David and 2 maybes. David, justify yourself.
I like it. It's just cool. A little bit weird with the snowflake hand. That's the only thing that sticks out. I quite like the odd flange ring and the black and red theme. Very cool. It's just a cool looking watch, even though the single bar lock structure is on this also, right, Ripley?
Yeah, anything with the FXD, it's going to be that fixed bar with the lugs.
That's what I thought. Yeah, the fixed bar is kind of odd, but otherwise, it's just a cool watch. I would still get the pink dial one, though, not this one, but it's cool.
Good stuff. Ripley, why is it a maybe from you?
I'd want to see it in the carbon composite first before really forming a decision. I think I love it in concept. I love that they're doing this. I think a cycling watch is fun. I mean, it's no more or less useless than a regular tachymeter, something on your. So I think it's I love the concept of it. I'm not sure how it would feel in person, if it would feel at all kind of like cheap or a little too lightweight for the price. So I'd really want to handle it, but I love the concept of it. I think it's pretty good looking. It's probably too big for my wrist, but I'm Breitling guy, so never mind. It's fine. Yeah.
Every day you're growing a little bit more. Yeah, I give it a maybe. I'm just not sure how usable the tachymeter scale on it. It looks absolutely minuscule.
Rick, how useful is any tachymeter scale? When was the last time you were driving and actually let me maintain a speed for a full mile, constant speed, let you know how fast I'm going?
But I'd at least like the illusion that it's useful, and I'm not sure that this even gives me the illusion that it's useful. It looks like you need to carry a microscope along with it in order to identify what it is. I mean, there's 3 layers on the tachymeter scale, which I don't even understand. It's like
I don't understand.
I mean, I thought that I don't know what it's like trying to be a Navi timer almost. With the amount of information it's trying to tell you. I do like a snowflake hand though, so that's why it still maintains its maybe.
Actually, Rick, there's 4 layers. So if you look at if you look at the 7-minute marker ish, like the 10-minute marker on the dial, there's actually 4. So it starts at 240 and then goes down to like.
Yeah, I do love the fact that you're having to tilt your head on the video to show this. Yes, if you go just there's a layer there where there's
240 kilometers an hour. Like, wait, what are you doing on a bike?
But anyway, so it's just it's not going to do what it's designed to do fundamentally.
Yes,
it's completely impractical. So there we go. That's why I get to maybe. Okay, next up. This little stunner, which is a hands-on with an Artime ART015N Tourbillon watch. I confess, I do largely like these. Ripley, you got hands-on with it. Did it survive contact with the enemy?
I love these things. The original titanium version from last year was one of the coolest pieces I saw in Geneva last year. This one's now in rose gold. Awesome piece. It's this multi-component sapphire in rose gold case. The bridges and wheels are made out of white gold, so it's a largely gold watch. It doesn't have a regular crown, so it's like a function selector. You push it, it switches between winding and setting and neutral, like kind of Richard Mille style. Super cool piece. Cool from every angle. Very expensive, but very lovely.
How expensive?
265 or something like 260.
It's 247, I think.
247, is it?
Yes, $247,000.
Okay, not too bad.
$250,000, yeah.
Oh, it's under a $250,000. It's under the $250,000. Okay.
Just what you need.
Just what you need.
Yeah, so hit, miss, or maybe. 1, 2, 3, go. Maybe, miss it. We have a variety. I gave it a maybe because
it's shaped like a Panerai, vaguely.
Because it's shaped vaguely like that. That's as good a reason as any. It's shaped vaguely like a Panerai. So I give it a maybe. If they could have done so, is that crown? Is that the standard position of the crown, Ripley?
Yes, it has a sticky out crown and it's vaguely shaped like a Panerai. That's why you like it, Rick.
That's why I like it. Yay! Sorted. That's all the aesthetic that I need. David, how did you vote?
The sticky out crown gets me. That it even has that. I voted a miss because I was thinking like, how much is it going to cost? Like $47,000, maybe $87,000, but it's $247,000, and I just don't see where that money is going. Not even close. Not even close.
I love the pieces. It's kind of made from the people behind it are kind of like they come from all different sides of the industry, all with very impressive resumes. It's all very well executed, interesting case construction. If I was going to be buying a $250,000 like ridiculous independent, this is 100% what I would be getting. This or
what?
A couple others.
I mean, a Ferdinand Berthoud is 100,000 less than this. And it's in another league in terms of finishing and construction and everything else.
Yeah,
100,000 less.
But can I see through the lugs? Like, look at this thing. This thing is so rad.
I'll it out for you. If for 100,000, they would drill those lugs for you.
Well, I love how the sapphire arm hair.
Yeah, well, I love how the sapphire extends over there. I don't have much arm hair, so I think I'm a perfect candidate. My warm tan will just shine through the sapphire of the watch.
Am I right in saying this has got a Velcro strap?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
I'm getting the wrong kind of goosebumps. I mean, it's like the big Berthoud, the big one with the fusee chain, with the 600-piece chain and whatever, is exactly $247,000. And if you look at that watch and then you look at this, which is just basically a straightforward tourbillon in a way, it's there's no comparison, really.
But David, if you look at it, squint with your eyes slightly shut and your head tilted, it could say David Braden underneath the Artime. That could be your name.
I did see that. Yes, that's actually true.
Yeah, so
Now I understand it. Now I get
it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Maybe for that money, they'll put your own name
That's
on it.
$100,000 right there.
100 grand right there. Good stuff. Right, let's move on to a brand that just doesn't seem to have got much in the way of coverage during or after Watches and Wonders, and normally they at least do something that gets everyone's attention. David, hands on the Hublot Spirit of Big Bang Bleu Sapphire watch. You like it?
Oh, well, yes, very much. People will hate me for this after I dislike that Tourbillon, but it's half the price almost. It's $143,000, and it's freaking sapphire, all of it. Everything you can see in the case, it's sapphire. I remember when the first Richard Milles and Cecil Pernils came out with sapphire cases, they said that they took 1,000 hours to machine the cases. A lot less complicated cases to be fair, and these take 100 hours to finish now, and they are almost exactly a tenth of the price, which is interesting, right? So for 140 something thousand to get a full sapphire case watch of this complexity is quite interesting. I took some macros of the case, and it's in the article. The engineering here is just unreal in this case, really. Very cool stuff.
Okay, let's give it a vote. Is it a hit? Is it a miss? Or is it a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Hit. Three hits. Yeah. It was either a miss or a hit. It's not. There's nothing maybe about this watch.
That's true.
It's not a maybe. I think it's close to being a miss. It just the black pushers. What are they? Are they made of something exotic?
They're not black. The pushers are in polished, I think, titanium or something, but sometimes they reflect black because of the mirror polish there. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'll give it a hit because fundamentally it's a sapphire watch, and who doesn't want a sapphire watch? Ripley, why would this be a hit?
Well, I love sapphire Hublots, and I love the Sound Blue line. I think, regardless of legibility, I think they're just super, super cool looking. Now you put those two together, and this looks like a prop out of some like wild movie. And it's going to be expertly executed to boot. Super, super cool piece. Yeah. What else more? 100% cool. Like, you might not wear this every single day, but that's not the point. If you're the type of person who owns this, you probably own lots of watches anyway. So like this is like peak novelty, really, really rad, super different as well. I'd rock one on each wrist.
David, you voted a hit. If you had one, how often would you wear it?
Every day.
Would you?
Yeah, I wouldn't think twice, honestly.
Rid of all the rest of the collection goes because this is your only watch.
I would wear it, yeah, all the time. My only worry is that I would get bored with it in a year or something like that. That's just how weird I am. But I honestly think that I would just be over it in about a year.
And what would they just be hard drugs or something would then need to fulfill that empty void? What would you do when you got bored of life, getting bored of this?
You'd get a Credor.
It's just more diamonds and colored sapphires from then on. This would be like a nice intersection between wearing, whatever I'm wearing and all the rainbow gem set, whatever. So this is just bang on in the middle for like a year. This buys me a year's time of watch wearing before I get burned out for life. It's great.
Good stuff. Well, that is our show for this week. We hope that you aren't all burned out of watches just yet, as we have plenty more to discuss. We'll be back with a full squad next week, hopefully, and we'll have some guests on potentially as well to play hit miss maybe with us. Other than that, we're all away to dream of Credors and sapphire Hublots and wonder why we too are not on the waiting list for a Rolex Daytona. So yeah, goodbye from me and goodbye from these guys. Goodbye.
Everyone. Bye, everyone. Rick, you didn't ask what we are wearing and where we are, but I am wearing a watch.
Okay, so post-match, David is wearing a watch. David, what are you wearing?
It's the new Chopard Mille Miglia Jackie X edition.
Oh,
in
very
for
good,
review.
Very good. Ripley, are you wearing anything that is worthy of us also have a post-meeting note?
Oh, yes.
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 Breitling man is still
The
here.
double quarter pounder. That's with cheese.
And I'm still in Scotland, still wearing a Panerai, and that's definitely goodbye from all of us now. Goodbye.
Cheers.